So the 2025 NASCAR season is now underway, and we've had two very different extremes of racing. So to start with, we had the clash at Bowman Gray Stadium. If you don't know what Bowman Gray Stadium is, basically think about your high school football stadium and the track that goes around it that people who aren't fat like me can actually run around that. Basically think of that, but paved and cars race on it. It's as insane as you think it is. So they had the clash, and the clash slapped, but there's too much else to get into, so we're going to just move on. But NASCAR, you need to keep the clash at Bowman Gray Stadium. So, what else happened this week? Denny Hamlin says Dale Earnhardt wouldn't be successful at today's superspeedway racing. Now, when I read this, my brain had an aneurysm. Denny Hamlin was actually making a nuanced point about how racing today is different than racing back in the day in NASCAR, specifically when it comes to super speedways. And when we talk super speedways, we're basically talking about restrictor plates. And while Denny was making a good point, that's not fun. So let's go crazy about this. So what is a restrictor plate? So we have to go back to the 1987 Winston 500 at Talladega Superspeedway, where Bobby Allison crashed into the front stretch. He was coming down the front stretch, and his tire blew. It spun the car, and cars, when they go backwards, basically turn into airplanes. Lifts up, crashes into the catch fence, injures a bunch of fans. He was going like 210 miles per hour. Car comes back down, spins out in the front stretch, collects a bunch of other cars around it, and that's when NASCAR decided we could no longer have fun. And by fun, they decided, we can't actually kill these guys. So they introduced what's called the restrictor plate. And basically, the restrictor plate goes in the air intake, and it restricts the amount of air going into the engine, thus the name restrictor plate. So the basic principle is less air equals less engine go vroom. And that's all fine and dandy. The problem is, now that all these cars make less horsepower, you can't pull away from the car behind you. You don't have the power to do that. So all the cars are now packed up, and you start drafting off of each other because you want to get less air on your car, creating drag. And all this is physics, and I like physics, but oh my gosh, it's hard. It's just annoying to explain. So you now have all these cars in packs, and you're racing, and that means any small little turn, small little crash turns into what's called the big one. And the big ones suck. Like, you can collect half the field in one crash. It's disgusting! So now that we know what restrictor plate racing is, let's go back to Danny's comment. Because Danny said that Dale Earnhardt and Dale Earnhardt Jr. couldn't dominate in restrictor plate racing today. Even though they don't use the restrictor plate anymore, it's basically the same principle. So let's compare Denny Hamlin to the Earnhardts. So Denny Hamlin has 7 total restrictor plate racing wins. And when we talk about restrictor plate racing, we're basically just talking about Daytona and Talladega. So Denny Hamlin has 3 Daytona 500 wins, 1 win at Talladega, and 3 wins in the duels. We'll get back to the duels in a second. The duels are at Daytona. Let's compare that to the Earnhardts. Dale Earnhardt Sr., racing god, has 3 Daytona wins, including the most famous Daytona 500 win probably ever, the 1998 Daytona 500, where he finally won it after 20 years. Watching that back and hearing Mike Joy's call on that is like chef's kiss, like quintessential NASCAR.
The pick. 20 years of trying, 20 years of frustration. Dale Earnhardt will come to the caution flag to win the Daytona 500. Finally, the most anticipated moment in racing. Look out on pit road. Every man on every crew has come out to the edge of pit lane to congratulate the man who has dominated everything there is to win in this sport, except this race, until today.
So he has the 3 wins at Daytona. He has 10 wins at Talladega and 12 wins in the duels at Daytona, including 10 in a row between 1990 and 1999 for a total of 25. Dale Earnhardt Jr. has 4 wins at Daytona, including 2 Daytona 500s, 6 wins at Talladega, and 5 dual wins for a total of 15. So, Denny, I'd sit this one out. But you made a really good point, but don't tell anyone.
So, Dale, I got a lot of flack because I said you wouldn't be as successful in this era of next-gen super speed.
You chose your words wisely there.
But no. Hey, I blame Mike Davis and them boys back there on the headline.
How can you make a blanket statement like that?
Because
Dad wouldn't be successful.
That's wrong.
I could hear.
That's not what I said.
You did.
That's not what I said.
That's what I heard.
No, that's what the headline they chose to put up.
The rest of your.
I said you would hate it.
I do hate it. Yes.
I said.
I would hate
you
it.
being.
So that brings us to the duels. How it's set up is you have your standard qualifying where you go out on the track and whoever has the fastest time around the track gets the pole. Whoever has the second fastest time is on the outside pole, meaning they're on the outside of the track, front row. You then have the duels where the field is split up basically in half and you race. And whoever wins that race sits second row of the 500 to start. So you have one race that sets the inside line, and duel number 2 sets the outside line. Simple enough. It's also really weird now with the charter system, and the charters are crazy, and there's still that lawsuit going on, and who knows what's happening, but here we are. So, duel number 1 was great. Like, there was more cautions in there than I think anyone was thinking, because normally the duel's fairly calm and collected because you're just trying to get your car into the race. So the problem is that NASCAR has drivers that like to be dum-dums. So we have, on lap 14, we have Chandler Smith pulling a dum-dum, pulling down in front of Josh Berry. It wasn't Josh Berry. It was Justin Haley, you absolute fucking dipshit. He wasn't clear, not even close. You see him come down, tags in front of Josh Berry. It was Justin Haley. And then goes back up the track collecting a bunch of cars, including Helio Castroneves. That's important because Helio Castroneves, the Indy 500 winner, was there trying to qualify. He would get in purely on winning or his position in the duel. However, because Chandler Smith had to be a dum-dum, it wrecks Helio Castroneves out. His car is broken, can't continue, so he has to get in on the open provisional, which it's a thing.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
So the open provisional is this thing with the new charter system that world-class drivers can apply 90 days ahead of time to basically have a guaranteed spot into a race. It's another NASCAR gimmick. I get what they're going for. They want Max Verstappen, the Formula One driver, to come race NASCAR so we can settle this debate between Kyle Larson and Max Verstappen. It's never going to happen, but that's what they want. So, because Helio crashes out, and you have other open cars are cars that don't have charters. Oh my gosh, this charter system is terrible and breaks my brain. Justin Allgaier is racing the first ever Cup Series car that Junior Motorsports, Dale Earnhardt Jr., his team that he owns now, they race in the Xfinity Series. They are in the Daytona 500. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Kind of cool. As a Junior fan, I liked it. So that's all that. Basically, long story short, Chandler Smith dum-dum, Bubba Wallace wins, Justin Allgaier in the race. That's all you need to know. In duel number 2, you have Austin Cindric behind Chris Buescher on lap 48, and Austin Cindric gets a run. Chris Buescher forgets how to drive in a straight line, meaning that he tries to throw a block, throws it late because we can't have anything nice, and it stacks up the field behind him, and a bunch of people crash out, including Alex Bowman, Brad Keselowski. You need a better name, bud. I'm just kidding. You do you. And Daniel Suarez. And then the big controversy here is on lap 60, NASCAR completely fucked Eric Jones out of a win. So coming to the line, it's Daytona. Coming to the checkered flag. Of course, they crash right on the front stretch, like 100 yards away from the start-finish line. So Eric Jones is out front, and he's alongside Austin Cindric, and Eric Jones gets a run down the front stretch, and at the line, Eric Jones is ahead. Eric Jones should have won the race. However, because whoever was on the caution light, the little button where they turn on the lights, the yellow lights around the speedway, the caution lights, whoever was that hit that button faster than Buffalo Bills fans hit the bottle after losing to the Kansas City Chiefs again. Yeah, they were right on that. So they hit the light, and because NASCAR eliminated racing back to the flag during a caution back in 2004, that means the field freezes at the time of caution, meaning Austin Cindric won that race. This will be important later. So this brings us to the race on Sunday. And before the race, NASCAR announced that they were moving the start time up 1 hour because there was a chance for rain, and NASCARs don't do well in the rain. This is what we call foreshadowing. The other fun part of this was the Chiefs Puff and Chief decided to go to the start of the race, and the Fox broadcast announced it like 8,000 times that he was going. You had the shots of Air Force One coming to the airfield because the airfield's right behind the backstretch. Air Force One coming in and landing. You see the motorcade come out with the Beast, the limo, coming over to the track. He's, kissing hands, shaking babies, whatever. And as part of this, they have the president leading the first 2 pace laps in the Beast. And during that, he sends a radio message to all the drivers. And he gave them some pretty interesting advice.
You gotta use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the I can do anything.
Disgusting!
I have problems. So we get all this out of the way, and we finally are racing at the Daytona 500 for 8 laps when it starts to rain.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
And we are red flagged for 3 hours.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
So it rains, we get the track dried off, and we're finally night racing, which I kind of like night racing at Daytona. It's pretty cool, like just the look of it. So on lap 63, Denny Hamlin gets pushed down onto the apron. Right behind him, Zane Smith checks up, but because Zane Smith can't drive worth a shit, he spins out and he gets pushed up into Josh Berry. But because it was Josh Berry, no one really cared. I have notes in here about the stages, but I refuse to acknowledge that stages exist because stages in the playoffs are dumb and terrible, so I'm just not going to acknowledge it. On lap 71, Joey Logano had to be Joey Logano and ruin everything, and so he stacks up the outside lane, and this causes John Hunter Nemechek to turn into Ross Chastain into Helio Castroneves, and of course it was John Hunter Nemechek. John Hunter Nemechek ruins NASCAR races like Dick Cheney ruins countries in the Middle East. This also takes out Martin Truex Jr., which that in and of itself should be considered a war crime. So John Hunter Nemechek should be sent to The Hague. Maybe Joey Logano too. And again, because Joey Logano still has to make everything about himself, I say this, Joey Logano had the fastest car this race. Joey Logano, by every right, should have won this race. But with 15 laps to go, Joey Logano has to pull a dumb move, and he makes a run when they're already 3 wide for a hole, trying to make a 4th lane. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., being Ricky Stenhouse Jr., a.k.a. being a dipshit, throws a late block. And so he gets in front of Joey, and for a second there's this weird tension in the air, this weird sexual tension between Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Joey Logano. Because Ricky Stenhouse Jr. threw this late block and got right in front of him. And Joey Logano has 2 options there. Joey Logano can check up, or he can say, fuck it, hammer down.
fucking hammer down.
Pedal to the metal.
Pedal to the metal.
So Joey Logano wrecks out the field. Both Stenhouse and Logano are out. This collects Blaney, Busch, Gregson, Elliott, Gillen, basically a bunch of drivers. Like, this is one of the big ones. I say one of them because there's more. After this, Joey Logano, being a dum-dum and having to make everything about himself, having to be the center of attention. Joey Logano's trying to drive it back to the pits, but the car's just obviously broken. Like, he needs to go left to go down pit road, but every time he gasses it, it just goes into the wall. Just noses right into the wall. And what's hilarious is, like, it does that. Car's obviously broken. Like, I can tell it's broken, and I'm an idiot. He then backs up and tries again. If at first you don't succeed. So Kyle Busch was knocked out of the wreck that Joey Logano caused because Joey Logano sucks. And what's hilarious is coming out of the infield care center, he's being interviewed and says,
"Looks like the fastest car got in a hurry to get to the wreck."
Savage. Straight savage. I can't believe I'm starting to like Kyle Busch. With 4 laps to go, Christopher Bell is leading the outside lane. And because he's a dum-dum, he doesn't know how to drive in a straight line. So he gets a push from Cole Custer, turns right straight into the wall. When he comes back down the track, he collects Ryan Preece. And at that point, Ryan Preece has changed occupations from NASCAR driver into astronaut. Because Ryan Preece's car gets mounted on top of Eric Jones's car. It then turns into a rocket ship, lifts off the ground, flips over, and then rolls again back up on its wheels, crashes into the outside wall. And so this is twice now that Ryan Preece has flipped down the backstretch at Daytona. I don't know what that racetrack has against him, but he may Dale Earnhardt it there. I hope not, but he may. Ryan Preece took this all in stride because a couple days later he changed his Twitter profile into an astronaut, and I thought that was pretty good. This takes us to overtime because, of course, the NASCAR race has to go to overtime because everything has to be lame and dumb and lame. So Cole Custer, who drives for the Haas team now, whatever it's called now, it used to be Stuart Haas, now it's just Haas, and he's the only one driving for him now. Cole Custer honors the Haas F1 team by moving from the outside lane into the middle lane. The only problem being is that there was a Chase Briscoe-sized car in the way. So Custer pushes Briscoe down into Austin Cindric. Custer collects Denny Hamlin, who was well on his way to winning his 4th Daytona 500.
What the fuck are you doing?
It collects the rest of the field. You have another big one. But NASCAR did the funniest thing. So you remember when I said, remember that for later about duel number 2? It's later now. So instead of throwing a caution when half the field is crashing out on the backstretch, NASCAR says, "Do you want to play a game?" And just forgets that the caution light exists. And so out of nowhere, William Byron, who has just kind of been riding around towards the front all day, somehow makes it through all the carnage and crosses the line. Wins a back-to-back Daytona 500. And then, after the race is over, NASCAR throws the caution.
You were literally too stupid to insult.
Thank you.
Because NASCAR making a good officiating decision is like me trying to run a marathon. It's not going to happen. On lap 101, the FBI definitely killed MLK.